and you can't find it on the website very easy. Well, that's because the credit card companies won't allow you to put CBD to market it. Here the Congress passes the Controlled Substance Act. They do all this. I mean, they reverse that. They take it off. The DEA does this, but the banking committee is still sitting on their hands, going, well, is it what happens if marijuana guys get involved and they're out there, and so there's this issue with banking. Now it is changing fast. I mean, really fast. One of the biggest credit card companies called Square. If you've heard of Squarespace, they called up our company and said, "Hey, do you guys want to sell CBD?" It's like, I had 3 accounts shut down by Square. So it's like, sure. And so it's changing. You're going to see this change fast. And Mitch McConnell wrote a letter to the banking committee and said, you guys got to change this because we got a bunch of farmers out there in the U.S. growing hemp and nowhere to put their money, right? Because if banks don't allow you to deposit your money because you're growing hemp, that's an issue. Then they're kind of stuck with the marijuana guys, right? You know where the marijuana guys keep all their money? Oh no, it's storage units. I mean, literally, there are storage units full of cash. I've actually seen them. I can't tell you where they are, but I've seen them. The other part is you have states where they have different regulations dealing with both marijuana and CBD. I think Washington is a pretty good state up here, but there are some states that it becomes very complex to work together with that. So those are the issues. So where does that leave us? It's a free-for-all. So, airplane mode. So does anybody know what a Sooner is from Oklahoma?
Basketball.
Well, they're basketball players. I'm actually from Oklahoma, right? You know what a Sooner is?
Yes.
Are you a Sooner?
Yeah, it's like a wagon.
That's a schooner. That's close. A schooner. Okay, a Sooner. So when the big in the I think it was the late 1800s, they did a land grab in Oklahoma, right? And if you've seen the movie Far Away, I'm dating myself, I'm sure. But they lined everybody up on this line and they shot a cannon off. And you registered, you got a stake, and you go out there, and if you had your stake in that ground, they had stakes plotted out there. You had to go out, pull that stake, and put your stake down. You had the 20 acres or however many it was around that for free, right? So a Sooner, what happened was these guys went out before the cannons went off. They went out the night before or a day before, and they pulled out the stake. Well, they left the stake in, but they hid in the bushes, and then the cannons flew, and they ran their horse around like they were tired, and then they went and pulled the stake out, and they were there. They were the Sooners. They got there sooner than everybody else. Right? That's actually where it comes from. It's not just a football team. It actually was the name for the guys that got in, the Sooners. I'm a Sooner. You guys are all Sooners right now in the CBD market. Because right now, there's new products popping up every day on the internet. There's no regulation in the country about making products. You could start making CBD products in your garage and start selling. And like you say, most of them, when you go out and test them, they're crap because you don't know what you're getting. You'll see stuff like, well, it has to be organic, it has to be seed to sell. Well, we grow it on this farm and we harvest it here, we process it here, and we put it in the bottles here, and so it never leaves the farm, and you're getting something that was basically had unicorn manure, and we didn't use pesticides, we used fairy farts. I mean, literally, I've heard it all. It is crazy out there, and you get on the internet, and you can't find. I've seen products on Amazon that boast of 10,000 milligrams of full spectrum hemp for $59.95, and I'm like 10,000 milligrams of what?
Right.
Because trying to prove what they have in there, right? The mass confusion and everything is leading everybody to look for a trusted source. So this is one of the reasons why we partner with a network marketing company, because we have another brand that we do. Everybody that's been with Q knows that. We have a medical brand, and we sell it just through doctors and pharmacists. So we knew that that's where they were, you know, when people were, that's where they were gonna go. But just selling to the mass, you're gonna go to your friends, you're gonna go to people you trust. Because if you go to the internet, you're just gonna get confused. So here's the 5 principles, and this, if you're gonna walk away from here learning something, I call these kind of 5 pillars of CBD or full spectrum hemp. And it really differentiates what we're doing and what you have here compared to anybody else in the market. It's all about full spectrum hemp. It's about where it's sourced. It's about the extraction. It's about the bioavailability and also the stability. Those 5 things, if a product has those, you're in good shape. If it doesn't, it's literally a crapshoot. So let's start with industrial hemp and what it actually is. We talked a little bit about the difference between marijuana and CBD, but by definition, industrial hemp are cannabis sativa plants that have THC delta 9 less than 0.3%. Here's the best analogy that I can give you. Is anybody here a farmer or grow up on a farm? Okay. So you know what the difference between feed corn and sweet corn is, right?
Right.
Okay.
I remember I spent some time back in the Midwest, and I got off a plane in Iowa and I saw all these cornfields. And the corn is like 10 feet tall and it's green and there's all these ears on there. And I was going, oh man, I said, where is the corn stand? And they looked at me and they said, you can't eat this stuff. Right? It's feed corn. Is there a time when you can pull feed corn out of the ground early and eat it? Right? It's not, it's nasty. It was not, and now a lot of it's GMO, but it wasn't bred for that. Feed corn is made for corn sweeteners, it's made for corn, it's used mostly for cattle feed and for that kind of stuff. We eat it, but we eat it after it's been processed, right? Sweet corn, on the other hand, it's sweet corn from the time you plant the seed, a sweet corn seed will grow sweet corn. That's the same thing. An industrial hemp plant will grow industrial hemp. It grows to be about 20 feet tall. A marijuana plant will grow a marijuana plant. They're not, even though they're the same species, they are not the same at all. And at no point in its growth is industrial hemp ever marijuana. It is completely, and that's what really got me into the business. Because when it was a U.S. congressman that approached me in 2014 and he knew about our technology. He wanted us to get involved with this, and I said, and it's actually a great story, because what happened is his daughter, when he was a U.S. congressman, died of cancer. She was 17 years old. Devastating. And he tried to get her medical marijuana in the state of Utah, which was
Didn't happen.
impossible.
Right.
And after she passed away, he got involved with finding out he started research this, he found all about the cannabinoids. And he was one of the guys who helped write the 2014 Farms Bill, because he found out all these medicinal benefits of cannabinoids, and they weren't THC. Because cancer patients don't take THC unless, end stage, if they just want to zone out, but a lot of them will just take high doses of CBD because it takes away the pain. They're still there with their family members. It's a completely different experience. So he got me involved with that. The other problem was they had when they passed the Farms Bill, is that one of the issues they had is they're going to do all these pilot programs, right? And the only way to get CBD or whether it was industrial hemp was the same, get it in somebody quickly, was the same way to get marijuana. How do you get marijuana quickly? Right? If you inhaled, those of you that didn't, but you smoked it, right? Because it went in your lungs and it got there immediately. If you ingest it, it doesn't work that well and doesn't work that fast. So when he said, look, we have to wait to dose this, can you guys work with it? And I said, no. I said, I don't want my kids thinking their old man made his money off pot. It's the same, and that's why I'm very patient with people who say, oh, you're dealing with pot? Aren't you a pot dealer or something? And I say, no. Let me tell you the difference, because I was where they were all at. And a lot of people you talk with, and I know that people know about marijuana up here and they know about CBD, but a lot of people don't really know the difference. And it is literally night and day between the two plants. So what's full spectrum oil and what it is not, right? So here's what it is. Full spectrum oil is industrial hemp that has been refined, purified, and while doing so, keeping all the terpenes, the flavonoids, and the cannabinoids that give it the effect, and it makes a oil, right? The other names for full spectrum oil are full spectrum hemp CBD oil, and broad spectrum hemp oil. That's some of the other things you'll hear it termed as. Here's what it is not. It's not marijuana, right? We've already covered that. It's not hemp seed oil. Does anybody know where hemp seed oil comes from? Hemp seeds. What kind of hemp seeds? Sterilized hemp seeds. You can't get hemp seeds. They sterilize them. Hemp seeds have no CBD in them. They have no cannabinoids in them. They have some fatty acids, but they don't have that in there. In fact, this became evident when they first passed the 2014 Farms Bill. One of our growers there in Kentucky was one of the first guys to bring it in. And he had to import, because U.S. you couldn't buy hemp seeds anywhere. No one had industrial hemp seeds because it had been outlawed. So he had to get them from Europe. Europe sends him a thing, and the DEA, of course, seizes it. Says, you can't do this. And they said, well, yeah, we can. It's Farms Bill, we're approved. He said, no, the DEA said, you have to use hemp seeds that they make hemp seed oil. And the farmer goes, they're sterilized, they won't grow. The FDA was like, it's like, so they were one of the first, our grower there was one of the first, they were one of 3 growers that have a DEA license, because they had to get a DEA license to import it. Because and the DEA still they thought they were dealing with something else. Because you can't plant an industrial hemp seed and get marijuana. The other thing is you'll hear is pure CBD oil. There's no such thing. When you see that advertised, we use pure CBD oil. Here's why. When you try to purify CBD, you get this. This is an isolate. When CBD gets to about 70% purity, it falls out into a crystal. So if you have 90, and this is 98% CBD isolate, this is what the FDA says is a pharmaceutical ingredient. This is what 80% of the products out there in the market are. Yeah, that's where we think it's going, just so you know. This is what's, and then if you take this and then you mix it into hemp seed oil or grapeseed oil or whatever, MCT oil. MCT is a favorite one everybody does. They'll say, oh, this is full spectrum pure CBD oil. There's no THC in there. It's CBD isolate in an oil. It's a Franken oil. If they say, oh, we have terpenes and all this stuff, they mixed it back in. So that's one of the issues out there. The other thing, and that's when isolate, a distillate is very similar, and then there also is synthetic stuff coming over from China. So how do they make it? And I'll give you a little demonstration. Well, I'm not gonna extract oil right here. I know, we'd be here all night. So this is stuff we got back in 2014, and I apologize, you guys are all, the back row, I don't know if you can see this. This is full spectrum hemp oil, right? And you can see all this stuff up on the top. Well, that's waxes and everything else. This stuff, it was the purest stuff we could find. It was from the biggest CBD importer in the US. This is what we started working with. And it worked, it was good stuff. But there is about 75% of this stuff in here that is really unusable. But there's no way to separate it out. This is CO2 extracted. The way you get CBD oil, there's 2 primary ways. One is supercritical CO2, and the other one is chemical, we call it chemical stripping. It's basically you get it through ethanol. Butane is another way, but butane is outlawed in most states. It leaves a lot of chemical residues. Ethanol is a little purer, but ethanol strips the CBD out. You usually get an isolate, and then you have to mix in everything else, and that's where you get a Franken oil. This is CO2 extracted. The problem that you have when you CO2 extracted is CBD and THC are so closely aligned CO2 won't pull out the THC. Now here's why it's a problem with, this is why you have a lot of products on the market that may be called full spectrum oil, but they're really not, because here's what happens. When you reduce an oil that's 0.3%, remember the definition was 0.3%? That's a dry weight. So that's when they get all this biomass, they bring it into a lab, they put it in one of these tanks, they reduce it down to oil. Also, they're getting 50-60% CBD oil. Because remember, if you get it too concentrated, it falls out. So they push it about as far as they can to get this oil. Well, what does that do to a 0.3% THC?
Concentrates it.
Concentrates it. So now your concentration of THC is 2 or 3%. Now, if you take that oil and ship it across the state line, now you committed a felony. Because THC is still illegal in the U.S. and will be, right? So what the companies are doing, they're extracting it with it, down to a certain point, and then they're adding in a bunch of oil, MCT oil, and they're all doing this, and they're adding in isolate to bump it up, so their numbers look good. But it's not a full spectrum oil that is purified. Now, this is really small, so you're not going to be able to see it, but you can kind of see. It looks kind of like honey. I'll bring you a bigger one on the next demonstration. But you guys, I'll leave them up at the table. You can come up and look at them. I just would ask you not to take them home because we're going to Missouri and nobody will see them if you take them. It's the show me state, right? But this oil here, and if you could see, there's nothing clinging on the sides. So the extraction company that we work with, and it's the only extraction company in the world right now that can get us in. And believe me, we were searching all over the world for oil like this, because our solubilization system, which we talk about a little bit later here, is so sensitive, and that we want the purest full spectrum oil we can get. If we have MCT oil, if we have anything else in there, and all those waxes, it makes it really tough. But we didn't want all the THC, because all of a sudden when you solubilize at 2 or 3% THC, people are going to get high, they're going to fail drug tests. So these guys came up with a system. They're out of Colorado, and we use them with our Kentucky oil. Is they have a system right now that will take out the THC after they go through CO2 extraction. And it's if there's anybody that's into chemistry and in here, it's called column chromatography. And it's a pretty technical term. Basically, you have these columns which separate everything out, and they separate out the THC. That's the only way you can do it and still maintain the integrity of the oil. And these guys are the only ones that are doing it. Now, somebody will catch up, but it's not easy. So the oil that we're getting is very special, and it's not distilled. It's not an isolate. It is the full spectrum oil, about as pure as you can get it. Now, why is that important? Well, in other words, I like this slide because all full spectrum hemp oil is CBD oil, because we call it full spectrum hemp oil. So it's on all the boxes, it's in all the literature, right? And we're doing that because of the FDA, because we don't want the FDA ever to come back and say, you're selling a pharmaceutical. Full spectrum hemp oil is CBD oil. But not all CBD oil is full spectrum hemp, right? You understand that right now? If we have the quiz later, you'll pass. Right? So here's the other part. Being from Utah, in our lab, in our facilities in Utah, in 2014, we had to get papered up. We'd have people send us oil from all over. We probably tested about 100 oils. And what we do is when they send them in, we'd say, can you please send us the lab data on there and all the certifications from your state? And they'd all say, oh yeah, it's coming, we'll get it, and they could never send it. What you guys, this is on your website, it's available to you. Every product gets tested at least 3 different times. One time when it comes out of the ground, we get a certification from the state. This is the Kentucky state that certifies this. Then we test it when it gets to our lab, and then when it gets to the product side, you get a test on every single batch. Every bottle. I have my glasses on, but it's here. There's a lot code on here. I can see it. It's just I can't read it because I don't have my glasses on. What's that?
It is dark in there.
It is dark in here, and I'm old. So, but there's a lot code on here. If you take that lot code and go to Q Web, that lot code will be right here, and you can see which product, which batch, and you can see what the cannabinoid profile is on there. Every single bottle, every product is tested. A lot of companies won't do that. So, why is full spectrum oil? What's the big deal about it? Why is it better than this stuff? Right? Well, I'll give you and this is an example you guys can all tell. There are two products that are approved by the FDA right now to be sold that are from cannabis. One is a pure THC product called Marinol, and the other one is the CBD product that we just got approved by FDA in December, which is called Epidiolex. So they studied these and they patented them. Well, the CBD patent is actually a U.S. government patent that they licensed as single molecules. And guess what? They didn't work on everything. All the different areas like brain development, healthy skin, joints, they didn't work on all that. Neither one of them. Marinol, the marijuana product, is approved. And think about this. If you're from the medical community, or I'm from pharmaceuticals, and I know, anybody know what OxyContin is?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, everybody knows. When they developed OxyContin, they said OxyContin is going to be the end all for opioids. And it is. That stuff is dangerous, right? And it ends a lot of people's lives. It's horrible. But it helps some people. There are some people who benefit, but it's bad when it gets. But it's pure opioid. It's synthetic, pure opioid. THC, Marinol is pure THC. You'd think that stuff would be a street drug, right? You'd think that there'd be guys out there going, "Hey, I got some, Marinol." You know what Marinol worked for in their clinical trials? Didn't work for pain, didn't work for anxiety, didn't work for anything other than appetite and nausea. Not mood, appetite, and no one was getting high off of it, right? CB and Epidiolex, the GW Pharma product out there. You know what it got an indication for? 2 types of seizures in children. So you have to have and why is that? The full spectrum oil, if this oil, and this is actually our data, nobody else has gone out and done this data, we did this over in Switzerland. Our data has over 8 essential, our oil has over 8 essential fatty acids. If you don't strip them all out, if you're not doing this to it, you're gonna have 8 essential fatty acids. How many essential fatty acids does fish oil have? You go up there and get that great, you have all that salmon up here. That's 3. 8 of them. So I've heard some of the doctors refer to this as God's perfect nutrient because of the profile in here. If you don't believe in God, nature's perfect nutrient. Whatever it is an amazing compound. So how does it do? One of the things that you hear about when you say, well, how does it work on all these things? Because if I was sitting in this room and I said, okay, this sounds like a network marketing product. Because it does everything, right? We have doctors that come to us and say, there's no way it works on all these different conditions. And it's like, try it, it does. I came from pharma industry, right? I launched Viagra, I launched Zoloft, I launched Glucotrol, I launched a bunch of antibiotics. We work with Lipitor. I mean, I launched over 15 blockbuster drugs, and I've never seen anything like this. Never. And nothing works this fast either if you apply good technology. And the reason why, now, is there any doctors in the room? Just by chance, that would admit it? Pharmacists, right? But pharmacy, are you a PharmD? Okay. So in medical school, how many doctors do you think learned about the endocannabinoid system? None. You know why? They didn't even know about this until the mid-1990s, late 1990s. So it's not in the medical journals. It's not in the pharmacy manual. This is so new that everybody's like, what is this? So here's what we know: there are over 6 right now. They've identified 6 CB receptor sites. It's called the endocannabinoid system. I think of it as it's like your engine, it's your computer system in your car, and it kind of regulates everything. And that's why it works on both the CNS and the immune system. The CB1 are the primary receptors, but they've identified 4 more. And your body actually makes its own endocannabinoids. Ironically, that's where the 0.3% comes from on the federal level, because that's what's normally in a body, is about 0.3% THC. Because your body has its own endocannabinoids. It normally produces these things. But when it gets out of whack, everything goes, you know how it is, like if your tire goes bad on one side, or well, I've got kid drivers, so my kids have ruined all of our cars, and one side goes out, and all of a sudden the next side goes out, and the next thing you know, well, the transmission's bad, and it's like,
You forgot to change the oil.
or change the oil. I've had 4 seized engines. Anyway, one kid seized 3 of those. Dad, there was oil in there.
Guy or girl?
It was a guy. CB1 works on the brain and spinal cord. So that's up here, right? You can guess which cannabinoid works on that one. THC is a big CB1 receptor site. It works on CB1. It affects your mood, relaxation, but CBD does also in some of the other cannabinoids. It helps with libido, ability to forget. This is a big one on the CB1 receptor site. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people talk how taking the CBD products, especially like Q, this is why I take it. I sleep better. I don't sleep more, I just sleep better. Mm-hmm. And one of the important factors in sleep is when you sleep, your mind actually forgets stuff. It's almost like a computer center that kind of goes through a recheck and cleans out everything. If you remembered everything that happened to you every day and never could forget anything, you'd end up at Bellevue or
Yeah,
I've
Bellevue.
been to the state psychiatric hospitals. I worked at Pfizer. We did a lot of studies up here, and so you would end up in a psychiatric unit. I mean, you could, if you can't forget things, and so your ability to forget is part of the CB1 site. CB2 works on the immune system, which goes throughout your lymph nodes, goes through your pancreas, and your GI tract. Your GI is 70% of your immune system. So that's why there's it works with inflammatory processes, pain receptors, and cortisol regulation. That's the main parts of CBD. So if you think about where it really works, this is how the endocannabinoid system works, which explains why you get so many different effects. But this is also why what we call it is you need the full spectrum oil, because if you're not hitting all those sites, you're only getting part of it, and it doesn't. They call it the entourage effect. That if you get them all firing on it, the whole system lights up. But if you only can, it's like the Marinol or the Epidiolex. You're only firing on one receptor and only partially. Everything doesn't activate. So different than a pharmaceutical drug, where pharmaceutical drugs identify one single molecule or a combination of 1 or 2 molecules that create an effect. With full spectrum oil, you need a whole bunch of things working together to create this effect with the endocannabinoid system. But here's the problem with all these great oils. When we get this, it's like, it's awesome, but it's only available 6% in the body, which means 94% of it goes right down the drain, literally. It's one of the most expensive oils that you can buy, and it all goes down the drain. So my analogy is always this. You have a really nice sports car, right? You baby that sports car. You take it to the gas station, and anybody with a gas station, do you guys use ethanol up here in the fuel? They put 10% in there. Well, they do in Utah too. But we have ethanol-free pumps now. it's more expensive. All the and sometimes you go up there and it's all the sports cars lined up. They're all pumping in, right? Imagine you have that car, you go up there and you take that ethanol-free stuff out, pull it out, pour out 94% onto the ground, and put the last 6% in. Is anybody going to do that? But every day, millions of people are doing that with CBD oil because you're only getting 6%. So that's why we got into this market, because we developed a system that basically mimics the body's way to absorb lipids or oils. The way your body does it, when you take something in its oil, your body creates what's called a micelle. Your stomach, the gastric acids, your stomach break it down to a microparticle, and your through the bile salts and your gallbladder, you produce a water shell, so to speak, around that molecule, and then it goes down into your intestines, and that gets absorbed through your intestinal tract.
What if you don't have a gallbladder?
What's that?
What if you don't have a gallbladder?
Well, you still produce the bile salts
So
and
it's
everything,
still-
so it still works. But that's why that's also if did you had your gallbladder removed? So did you have gallbladder disease? I don't want to. Or I have gallbladder.
Stones, yeah.
Yeah, my family's hereditary, and I had it, and it was like you eat a big fatty meal, you would just you die. It's horrible, right? It's your body trying to micelize all this stuff, right? And usually men don't get it as much. It's more of a female disease, but all the guys in my family got it. We were all miserable, and I just had to regulate. When I was about 40, it was like I had to regulate the fat intake, because if I ate too much oil, it was horrible. That's the way your body does it. We do the same thing outside the body. We create a small microparticle and put a water shell around it. So every product that you're going to get from us is in that form. This is what it looks like under electron microscope. It's 22 nanometers. This is what it looks like in its water form right here. This is a couple years old. Now this, if you were to hold this up close, all you're seeing is a yellow light, right? Or a little yellow golden hue. Can anybody see a nanometer? It's humanly, you can't see that. A micron is 1,000 times bigger, and you can't see microns either. So it's 1,000 times smaller than a micron. So what you're seeing here is the light reflecting off our micelles. We have a particle analyzer in our lab, and it reads it through light. It's a laser. That's how you check the size on it. Electron microscopes are like $50,000 to $100,000. They're expensive. So, our particle analyzer was about that. But anyway, this is how we analyze it. Here's the advantage of doing this. It's stable in hot or in cold conditions. It's not affected by the stomach acid. We have 2+ years of stability. We have micelles that have been sitting around for 5, 6, 7 years. It's like it's very stable. Here's the alternative, and there are a couple companies out there selling liposomes. And people say, "Oh, liposomes, it's great," right? Liposomes are about twice the size of a micelle. It's still a barrier around a microparticle, but there's one big problem with liposomes, and pharmacists will know this because about 10 or 15 years ago, all the pharmaceutical companies were down trying to figure out liposomes. They were trying to come up with liposomal products that would take IV products that they weren't bioavailable, and they put these liposomes on. There's one big problem. Their stability. They do not stay together over 80 degrees. They don't. Show me a study where they stayed over 80 degrees. They fall apart. Now, last time I saw, even in Seattle, it gets to be over 80 degrees, right? So if you ship it from anywhere, they're great when you pull them out of the lab and you do a test right outside a refrigerator. But if you're shipping them anywhere and they're exposed to anything over 80 degrees, you're paying for something that's not even there.
Wow.
And the last time I saw in the stomach, your body had a temperature a little higher than 80 degrees, if you're alive. Nanos is what the other people say. Oh, we've got nano. So this technically is a nano. This isolate is a nano. This is put into a nano form. Now, you're seeing stuff in there, right? Because they put a carrier with it,
Oh.
right? They've attached the carbohydrate. That's what their nano is, right? So this is a nano with a carbohydrate. Now, the problem with nano is it applies to a single molecule, so you can only put it to CBD. Or you can take some other cannabinoids. We have some other, we've taken another one and they make it into a single particle. Now, if it's a nano, your body still has to micelize it, so you're only halfway there. So that's why we believe that the nano size, that the micelle is such a unique and powerful way to deliver. This is a nano put into a dropper. And you can kind of see that, right? It's cloudy. So they say this is water soluble CBD. So it's not really water soluble, it's water dispersible. It is dispersible water. If it's truly water soluble, it would look like
Like
this.
that.
It'd be in its water phase. So, coming from pharma and being in biotech, one of the things I said is, look, I know what the FDA, I know what the regulatory path is. We're not going that. We're going to take this as a supplement. But we've got to show that if this is really bioavailable, we're going to do the studies to show. Because a lot of people out there say, oh, well, this is great. It gets into the body. It's 100% bioavailable. It's like, well, number one, if anybody says 100% of anything, run. Because there's nothing that's 100%. So we did, first thing we did is an animal study. This is an animal study. We take an intestinal lining of a rat, and we sacrifice the rat, take the intestinal lining, drop stuff on, see what comes out the bottom. It's a typical pharmaceutical study to find out what your absorption rate. When you see the 85% bioabsorption rate that you see in some of the literature, that comes from this animal study. Two really important things came out. One, 85% of it passed through, compared to the 6% in the this is full spectrum oil. This was a head-to-head study. This was actually this stuff, our early stuff, micellized, and in MCT oil. So but look at the difference between the two, and look how fast. This one didn't happen for almost an hour and a half before it actually even passed through at all. And within 15 minutes, we were hitting peak levels that just all passed through. So we said, this is awesome, but what does it really do in a human? So we got some humans that were willing to be sacrificed. No, the way you do human bioavailability studies is you give them something in their mouth, orally, which there are drops. You hook them up to an IV, and then you pull the blood. We had to pay them. They didn't do this for free. And what we did is, here's what we found. So we found that within 15 minutes, half of what they were getting, which was significant, was into the bloodstream, and by 30 minutes, almost all of it was absorbed, and then it lasted for almost 12 hours out. Now, pharmacists know this as pharmacokinetic data, because you can determine the half-life of a product like this. This is compared to the historical data. This wasn't head-to-head, this is just the historical data. This is what normal CBD oil looks like. It takes 90 minutes for it to get in there, and you're only getting about 6%, where we were almost 50%. That is remarkable. And that's why when people